Ashes carry more than dust. They carry memory, weight, energy, and the invisible thread between the living and the departed. Too many treat the scattering as a simple gesture, yet in truth, it can either bring harmony or plant new unrest. In Shaolin teaching, every outer act is tied to an inner state. If the heart is restless, the act will ripple unrest. If the mind is steady, the act can bring release. Long ago, masters spoke of how intention carves destiny. A bow without sincerity is empty. A word without awareness loses power. In the same way, scattering ashes without understanding can wound both the living and the spirit of the departed. It is not just about where the ashes fall. It is about the state you carry when you release them. The place and the heart combine. Together they determine whether the ritual is cleansing or heavy with unseen consequence. Few speak of this openly. Certain places magnify sorrow. Others disturb balance with nature. And there are spaces where ashes, once scattered, draw energies that should not be awakened. These are not superstitions. They are lessons preserved through centuries of observation, meditation, and mindfulness. When you act without awareness, you risk binding grief instead of freeing it. In this teaching, you will hear of the 7 worst places to scatter ashes, and more importantly, why they are dangerous, not only in the outer world, but within your inner landscape. I will guide you through principles hidden in plain sight, where ritual, mindfulness, and mastery must come together. Stay with me until the end. These warnings may save you from mistakes that cannot be undone. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. If the path of inner mastery speaks to you, subscribe and walk with us. The earth is not silent. Every stone, every stream, every tree carries a voice. To live with awareness is to hear it, even if no words are spoken. Shaolin teaching reminds us harmony is not created by conquering nature, but by walking in rhythm with it. When this rhythm is broken, the fracture returns to the one who caused it. Scattering ashes may seem harmless, but the act leaves traces. Ashes mingle with soil, with water, with the breath of the wind. They become part of the cycle of life. If scattered carelessly, they can disturb that balance. In rivers, ashes can alter purity. On sacred land, they can leave weight where there should be stillness. The earth does not reject, but it does respond. And the one who placed them feels that response within. Long ago, elders taught that the body returns to the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. But the way we return it matters. When done with respect, the cycle continues smoothly, and the living feel peace. When done with haste or ignorance, unrest grows. Like ripples moving outward from a single stone, the outer disharmony becomes inner disquiet. I once heard a saying among farmers near the temple: the soil keeps memory longer than the mind. It means every action we take upon the land is stored, seen, and echoed back. To scatter ashes without listening to the land is like speaking without hearing your own words. Sooner or later, the echo returns, and with it, the lesson that could have been learned gently. When you place the remains of a loved one into the earth or the waters, you are not only releasing them, you are also declaring your relationship to the natural world itself. Grief is a river. It can carry you gently, or it can sweep you away if you step into it without awareness. The Shaolin path does not deny grief, nor does it harden the heart against it. Instead, it teaches a way of standing firm in the current, to feel without being drowned. Non-attachment is often misunderstood. Many think it means to feel nothing, to cut ties with love or memory. But in truth, it means walking with memory without letting it bind you. To release ashes in a place heavy with emotional triggers, where you shared loss, arguments, or unresolved longing, can reopen wounds that should be healing. Each visit, each thought of that place pulls you back into a cycle of pain. Discipline in Shaolin training was never about suppressing emotion, it was about observing. When anger rose, the master would say, "See it, but do not drink it." When sorrow appeared, the teaching was, "Bow to it, but do not kneel forever." In the same way, when choosing where to scatter ashes, mindfulness asks, will this place bring peace, or will it anchor you to grief? Ancient scrolls speak of warriors who carried relics of the fallen into battle, believing it gave them strength. Yet the wisest among them noticed how these relics also chained the heart, keeping sorrow alive in every clash. They learned to honor the dead not by clinging but by releasing with clarity. Non-attachment is warmth, not coldness. It allows love to breathe without suffocation. By choosing a place that does not trigger endless grief, you give both yourself and the departed the gift of freedom. This is not forgetting. It is remembering in a way that strengthens rather than weakens, that uplifts rather than binds. Sacred spaces are like still lakes, meant for reflection, not disturbance. Temples, shrines, and places of worship already carry layers of prayer, devotion, and energy gathered through centuries. They are not empty grounds waiting to be filled. They are vessels already brimming. To scatter ashes there, even with good intention, may not add harmony, but overflow what is already complete. Respect is a central pillar of discipline. In Shaolin training, a student does not step into the training hall without bowing. The bow is not for the walls, but for the spirit that lives within them. In the same way, consecrated places deserve recognition of their boundary. They are designed for the living to enter, learn, and connect with the eternal, not for the constant layering of private rituals that may conflict with their sacred order. There are stories of seekers who, wishing to honor their loved ones, placed ashes within temple grounds. At first it seemed meaningful, but soon the place became a gathering of grief rather than clarity. Monks noticed that visitors left heavier than they arrived. Ritual, when done without alignment to the space, can turn from offering into disruption. Inner mastery means knowing that reverence is not only shown by presence, but also by restraint. To hold back from using a sacred space for one's own ritual can itself be an act of deep respect. The path teaches us that not all ground is meant to carry personal memory. Some grounds must remain clear for collective devotion, for balance to remain intact. The discipline lies in recognizing that boundaries preserve sacredness. By honoring them, you strengthen your own practice, learning that mastery is not always in doing more, but often in stepping back when the space itself has already spoken. A single drop of ink in clear water spreads further than the eye first sees. What begins small does not stay small. This truth is both physical and spiritual. When ashes enter soil or water, they do not vanish. They travel, they mingle, they alter. The earth carries memory, and nothing given to it disappears without leaving a mark. Shaolin practice has long emphasized awareness of consequence. Masters taught that even the lightest step on grass leaves an impression. In meditation, they would say, "See the ripple before you touch the water." The lesson was not about fear, but foresight. Every action, even the quiet ones, sets something in motion. Physical pollution is easy to overlook when it seems invisible. A handful of ashes scattered in a stream may appear harmless, yet streams connect to rivers, rivers to oceans. The same way, an unmindful action in the heart may seem private, but it connects to choices, relationships, and destiny. What is done in a moment can echo for years. Ancient chronicles speak of travelers who left offerings in sacred springs. At first the waters were pure, but over time the offerings multiplied, until the spring grew cloudy and life within it began to fade. The people did not notice at once, but the memory of their actions was held by the water itself. So too with the spirit, what we release into the world gathers weight until the pattern reveals itself. Inner mastery asks us to train the eye not only for the visible, but for the unseen ripples. To scatter ashes without awareness of their journey is to act without foresight. Discipline means stepping back and asking, what will this act set in motion, both in the earth and within me? Only then does harmony remain unbroken. There is a silence that holds more strength than any announcement. In the Shaolin path, this silence is called humility. To act without needing to be seen is to act from the deepest part of the self. When ashes are scattered for display, for the attention of others, or to make a ritual seem grander than it is, the act shifts from sacred to self-serving. Ego hides itself well, often behind the mask of reverence. The masters often warned that the loudest ceremonies are not always the most sincere. A monk once told the story of two brothers. One built a shrine so tall it could be seen from every village. The other lit a single candle in his hut each evening. Over time, the villagers forgot the shrine, but they remembered the quiet glow of the candle. Humility endures where spectacle fades. Public displays can easily distract the mind. Instead of entering the ritual with stillness, the heart becomes preoccupied. Who is watching? Do they understand my grief? Do they see my devotion? In that moment, the ritual no longer belongs to the departed or to the sacred, it belongs to the ego's hunger. Inner peace slips away, replaced by the endless craving to be witnessed. Discipline teaches us to keep the focus inward. A bow performed alone with sincerity carries more weight than 100 gestures staged for the eyes of others. Scattering ashes quietly, with purpose, allows the act to serve its true role: release, remembrance, and alignment with nature. To make it a performance is to bind the act with vanity. The Shaolin way reminds us that mastery is often invisible. The truest rituals need no audience. Their power is felt not in how many see them, but in how deeply they transform the one who performs them. Some grounds do not rest, even when centuries have passed. Battlefields, sites of war, places where many lives were lost. These carry a weight that lingers in the air, in the soil, in the silence. To stand there is to feel an echo of cries long gone, yet not fully dissolved. Such places are heavy with what the ancients called collective karma, the memory of suffering that belongs not to one person, but to all who were touched by it. Scattering ashes in such places may seem like honoring the fallen, but the act can also entangle the departed in unrest that is not theirs to carry. The energy of unhealed grief can overwhelm, like smoke that fills the lungs of one who only wished to breathe freely. Instead of release, there is a risk of being absorbed into pain that has not yet resolved. The Shaolin path teaches awareness not only of personal states, but of shared ones. A practitioner entering a battlefield would bow, not in worship, but in recognition. Here lies a teaching about the cost of ignorance, anger, and division. To add another soul's remains there without clarity is to risk binding them to a lesson already written in sorrow. Stories are told of pilgrims who carried relics to ancient war sites, hoping to bless the ground. Yet many returned unsettled, sensing the weight of countless spirits. The wise learned that not all places are meant to receive more memory. Some places need light, prayer, and healing, not more burden. Inner mastery means knowing the difference between honoring the past and feeding its wounds. To scatter ashes where suffering lingers is not always an offering. Sometimes the greatest respect is to let the dead rest apart from the shadows of collective pain. Discipline is not only about what one does within the self, it is also about how one walks among others. Laws, customs, and traditions are not merely rules written on paper or passed down through voices. They are the living fabric of a community. To ignore them is to tear at that fabric, creating ripples of harm both seen and unseen. In Shaolin teaching, respect extends beyond the temple walls. A monk bows not only to the master, but also to the farmer who brings rice, to the river that carries water, to the villagers who keep watch. Every gesture acknowledges that one life rests within many lives. When scattering ashes, this principle applies. To act without regard for the customs of the land or the laws of society is not an expression of freedom, it is an act of imbalance. There are stories of travelers who sought to scatter remains on mountains considered sacred by local people. Though their intent was love, their action stirred anger, not peace. Instead of creating release, they created conflict. The ashes became symbols of disregard, and the memory of the departed was tied not to honor but to dispute. Inner mastery teaches restraint in the face of personal desire. The urge may be strong. This place feels right to me, so I must. But mastery asks a deeper question. Does this place belong to me, or does it belong to something greater? By honoring the boundaries set by law and tradition, one honors the larger harmony. The true act of release is not about bending the world to desire. It is about aligning desire with the flow of the world. Boundaries, when respected, do not diminish the sacred act. They elevate it. allowing it to rest in peace with both nature and community. The mind is the true ground where every ritual begins. Even the most sacred mountain or the purest river cannot cleanse an act performed with anger, fear, or restlessness. When the heart is unsteady, the place itself cannot save the ritual. When the heart is clear, even the simplest spot can become a temple. Shaolin practice has always placed intention above circumstance. Before a ceremony, disciples were told to sit in silence until their breath became even and their thoughts like calm water. The master would say, "If you carry fire inside, the world will burn wherever you walk." It was a reminder that the state within determines the outcome without. There are tales of seekers who carried ashes to distant lands, climbing mountains, crossing deserts, reaching places of great beauty. Yet when they scattered the remains, their grief boiled into anger, their minds clouded with resentment. The places were majestic, but their spirits returned unsettled. What they carried within overshadowed where they stood. By contrast, others released ashes quietly in ordinary places. A quiet grove, a stretch of plain earth, even their own garden. But because they approached with stillness, gratitude, and clarity, the act became luminous. They felt peace, not because the ground was remarkable, but because their own hearts were steady. Inner mastery teaches that no place can purify a troubled mind. The preparation lies within cultivating gratitude, quieting anger, softening attachment. When the inner purpose is pure, the outer world aligns with it. When the inner purpose is clouded, even holy ground feels heavy. The discipline is simple yet profound. Prepare the self first, and the place will follow. In this way, the act of release becomes truly free, untouched by shadow. Ashes whisper the truth of impermanence. They are what remains when the body has completed its cycle, when fire has returned form to dust. To hold them is to hold a reminder that nothing lasts, not sorrow, not joy, not even the vessel we once called our own. Yet the mind resists this truth. It clings, tries to control where the ashes will rest, which mountain, which river, which stone will hold them forever. In doing so, it forgets that ashes themselves are a lesson, nothing fixed, nothing permanent. To obsess over legacy or location is to miss the teaching that the ashes carry. True release is not about building monuments, it is about accepting flow. In Shaolin training, impermanence is not feared, it is studied, embraced, even celebrated. Masters would sweep the training yard each morning, knowing the patterns would be gone by evening. They planted flowers, understanding they would wither, and still they planted. The lesson was clear. Beauty exists because it changes, not because it endures. There is an old story of a monk who scattered his teacher's ashes into the wind. When asked why he did not choose a sacred site, he replied, "The sacred is wherever the wind carries him." His act was not careless, but free from the chains of control. By letting the ashes join the endless cycle, he honored the teaching more deeply than any monument could. Impermanence, when received with open hands, becomes liberation. It frees both the departed and the living. To release ashes without clinging to place or legacy is to walk the path of true letting go. In this way, impermanence ceases to be a wound and becomes instead a doorway to peace. When the ashes have left your hand, the act does not end. The earth may receive them, the water may carry them, but the mind still holds the echo. What follows after scattering is just as important as the scattering itself. Without care, the memory can harden into regret or emptiness. With mindfulness, it can grow into strength and peace. Shaolin teaching views every action as a seed. A word spoken, a gesture made, even a thought entertained, each one plants something in the soil of the spirit. Scattering ashes is no different. It is a seed planted in the heart. What grows from it depends on the tending that comes after. Gratitude is the first tending. To give thanks for the life that was lived, for the lessons received, for the bond shared, allows the seed to grow roots in fertile ground. Forgiveness is the second. To release any lingering resentment or unresolved conflict ensures the plant does not grow twisted. Remembering is the third. Not clinging to the past, but honoring it with clarity, keeps the memory alive without binding it in sorrow. There is an old tale of a disciple who, after scattering his father's ashes, returned each year not to mourn, but to sit quietly, breathing gratitude into the wind. Over time, his grief transformed into gentleness, and others sought his presence for comfort. His act became more than ritual, it became a living tree of compassion. The lesson is clear. Scattering is not the final chapter, it is the planting of a seed. Inner mastery means watching what grows, watering it with awareness, and shaping it into something that nourishes rather than consumes. In this way, the ritual becomes not just an end, but a beginning. Every act leaves a trace. Scattering ashes may appear small, but it gathers together your state of mind, your relationship with the departed, and your place within the natural world. The Shaolin path reminds us that true mastery is not found in the action itself, but in the intention carried within it. When you move with clarity, with humility, with respect, the act becomes a bridge to peace. When done in haste or pride, it becomes a chain that binds. This teaching does not end with rituals for the dead. It is also a guide for the living. In daily life, every word you speak, every step you take, carries the same weight of intention. The same mindfulness that sanctifies scattering ashes can also bring harmony into ordinary moments, how you greet another, how you treat the earth, how you respond to struggle. Let your actions grow from awareness. Let your inner work guide your outer gestures. In this way, even the simplest movements become sacred, and life itself becomes a ritual of peace. If this teaching has touched you, walk further with us. Like this video, share it with those who seek wisdom, and subscribe to Shaolin Soulfire. May your path be steady, and may your heart remain light.